Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a really captivating moment in global affairs. It's one that gives us a stark picture of power, politics, and some very carefully crafted messaging. So, picture this: a massive military parade, a huge display of advanced weapons, troops marching in perfect sync. It's a real show of might on the world stage. Now, layer on top of that a very specific, very pointed reaction from a former U.S. president coming from across the ocean. What happens when these global leaders gather for this kind of spectacle and one really influential voice sends warmest regards that frankly sound more like a warning shot?
Yeah, that's the complex picture we're trying to unravel today. We're focusing on an article from the Times of India. The headline is "Warmest Regards to Putin, Kim Jong-un. Donald Trump reacts to China's mega military show, calls it conspiracy against U.S." It gives us a fascinating way to look at a major geopolitical event, China's first big military parade since 2019, and the powerful and very direct comments it sparked almost immediately.
And our mission here in this deep dive is really to guide you through all the different layers of this event. We want to unpack the diplomatic side of things, dissect the specific claims and accusations that flew around, and help you understand the broader implications when political rhetoric gets this high stakes. By the end, you should have a pretty comprehensive grasp of what happened and why it's actually so crucial for understanding current global power dynamics. We're looking at this convergence, really, of military displays, complex international relations, and the sort of lingering impact of political figures, even when they're not in office anymore.
Absolutely. So get ready to explore not just who was actually at this parade and what kind of impressive military gear was shown off, but also precisely what Donald Trump said that re-grabbed the headlines, particularly those very, very pointed messages he aimed at some, let's face it, undeniably prominent world leaders. Right, let's get into it. So let's start right there with the event itself. Beijing's really impressive military spectacle. China held its first large-scale military parade since 2019. That's quite a gap, which adds a layer of significance, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. 4 years is a notable pause for such displays.
And this wasn't just any parade. It was specifically timed to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, which in China is known as the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression. That's a powerful historical backdrop for what was a very modern show of force. What do you make of them choosing that particular anniversary for such a big show?
Well, it's a highly strategic choice. Commemorating the 80th anniversary of World War II, a conflict where China suffered immense losses, but also played a really significant role in the Allied victory. It lets Beijing highlight its historical contributions and, sort of by extension, its rightful place as a major global power today. It's like saying, look, we've been here, we fought hard, and we emerged strong. Domestically, it definitely boosts national pride and reinforces the party's story of resilience and strength. And internationally, it subtly reminds everyone of China's enduring power, linking its current military muscle to its past sacrifices. It's really a masterclass in strategic messaging, using history as a tool for today's geopolitics.
And it certainly wasn't a solo performance, was it? Nearly 24 foreign leaders were there. But what really caught the world's attention was who exactly was on that guest list. Among the prominent figures, Russian President Vladimir Putin, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, plus several Southeast Asian leaders. That's quite a lineup, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Putin, Kim Jong-un, side by side, essentially. That sends a very specific kind of message, right? What's your first take on that group?
My immediate thought is that it's a very carefully curated guest list. It's designed to project this image of solidarity among nations that, often find themselves opposing Western influence, or at least pushing for a more multipolar world. It's not just a show of China's might, but a show of aligned might, if you will.
Aligned might. I like that.
Yeah, and the presence of leaders like Putin and Kim Jong-un particularly. That speaks volumes. It showcases Beijing's deep strategic partnerships at a moment when both Russia and North Korea are under significant international pressure, sanctions, scrutiny. It basically broadcasts to the world, and maybe especially to Washington, that China isn't isolated. It has powerful friends. It really reinforces Beijing's pushback against what it probably sees as Western attempts to contain it.
Okay, and what about the actual parade itself? Beyond the history and the guests, what did China show the world? What was on display?
Oh, this was a deliberate, very overt projection of power. Extremely carefully orchestrated, down to the last detail. You had troops marching in these tight, almost uncannily precise formations past President Xi Jinping, who, of course, heads up the Communist Party and the military. And according to officials cited by the Associated Press, China really used this opportunity to showcase its latest stuff. We're talking advanced missiles, new fighter jets, other cutting-edge weaponry, and importantly, a lot of it was being shown in public for the very first time.
Really? First time for some of it.
Yes, exactly. Think next-generation systems, things potentially capable of long-range strikes, advanced anti-accessory denial tech. It was a very clear demonstration of how far their military modernization has come and their growing ability to project power well beyond their immediate neighborhood. It was China saying pretty unequivocally, look what we've built and look what we can now do.
So basically rolling out all their latest toys, so to speak. And you mentioned earlier how this parade also works as a diplomatic tool. Can you elaborate on that? How does a military parade do double duty as international relations signaling?
Yeah, it's fascinating how the article we're looking at frames the attendance of these leaders. It calls it a show of diplomatic outreach amid ongoing U.S.-China tariff tensions. This is really relevant, especially with Beijing trying to counter Washington's de-risking narrative. By showcasing this robust network of non-Western partners, they're reinforcing that multipolar worldview, directly challenging American dominance.
Right, so it's not just about who is there, but implicitly who isn't.
Exactly. The parade becomes this platform for, well, a type of soft power. Demonstrating who China can bring together on the world stage, it just highlights how these big national events are often multi-layered. You've got military messages, historical echoes, and diplomatic signals all wrapped up in one carefully packaged statement for the world to see.
And speaking of layers, that brings us directly to a very different kind of layer, the political reaction. Because this grand display, it certainly didn't go unnoticed by former President Trump, and his response was anything but subtle. Okay, so that's the scene. Beijing's meticulously choreographed spectacle, a powerful display, no doubt. But as we often see in international relations, the story doesn't just end when the parade finishes. What happened next, especially from that voice across the Pacific, really turned this show of might into a flashpoint for a global controversy. Let's pivot now to the reaction it provoked, specifically from former U.S. President Donald Trump. His comments came, as they often do, via a post on Truth Social. And his style, well, it was what we've come to expect. Direct, unfiltered, and undeniably strong. He started off with quite a claim, actually. He framed China's history, or rather the U.S. role in it, in a very specific way. He stated that many American workers had sacrificed their lives for China's freedom. Then he posed what he called a big question. He asked if President Xi would acknowledge the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China to help it secure its freedom from, quote, a very unfriendly foreign invader.
Referring to Japan and WWII, presumably.
Presumably, yes. He then added, many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory, and expressed hope they'd be rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. Oh. So it begins with this very specific and, you could say, highly political framing of history.
And this is exactly where the tone takes a very sharp turn. Right after this historical bit.
Yeah.
Trump then accused Beijing flat out of colluding and conspiring against Washington.
Yes.
Washington often being his shorthand for the U.S. government or establishment. Now, this isn't just criticism. It's a really serious, quite inflammatory accusation.
It is.
And it raises a big question, doesn't it? How does an accusation like that, made so publicly by a former president who still holds considerable influence, shape global perceptions? How does it affect diplomatic conversations?
Yeah.
It immediately reframes the parade. It shifts it from being just a historical commemoration or a show of strength to being, in his view at least, something potentially more sinister. He's suggesting a deliberate, coordinated plot against the United States.
And he didn't leave it there. He wrapped up that part of his post with a very specific, and I think it's fair to say, sarcastically delivered message. He wrote, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump.
That phrase, warmest regards, I mean, it becomes incredibly loaded in this context.
Absolutely loaded. It's dripping with sarcasm.
It's not a friendly greeting at all. It's a cutting remark designed to highlight what he sees as this nefarious alliance. What's the effect of addressing Putin and Kim Jong-un together like that, almost as a single unit, so publicly?
What really stands out is how directly and how provocatively Trump linked everything together. He took the military parade, the presence of those specific leaders, Putin and Kim China's own historical narrative, and tied it all up with this contemporary accusation of conspiracy. By naming them together and with that level of pointed sarcasm, he's not just making an accusation, he's actively building a narrative of a hostile bloc, an axis almost.
This kind of move really encourages critical thinking, or at least it should, about how history and current events aren't just things that happen. They're often weaponized, dramatically reframed in political rhetoric to push a specific viewpoint or agenda. You really see the power of language here, how it can shape international relations and public opinion so starkly. It's a deliberate attempt to define who the adversaries are. So moving beyond the immediate event and the reaction, let's think about the broader implications of all this. The military parade itself, with the new weapons, the high-level guest list. It was undeniably a powerful statement from China, no question. It was about showing off its growing military capabilities, yes, but also about cementing its standing on the world stage.
Right.
This isn't just projecting strength, it's signaling a potential shift in the global balance of power. For China, domestically, it bolsters confidence in the party's leadership, its ability to protect national interests. And internationally, it asserts China's role as a major power, one with its own sphere of influence, its own strategic partners.
And when you see leaders like Putin and Kim Jong-un sitting right there alongside President Xi during this display, well, that creates a really compelling visual for the rest of the world, doesn't it?
It really does. The optics are powerful.
Then to have a former U.S. president directly call them out together, explicitly saying they're conspiring, it's more than just inflammatory talk, isn't it? It actively shapes how people around the world see things. It could potentially harden existing alliances, deepen antagonisms. This isn't just about shifting alliances in the abstract. It's about how quickly the geopolitical map can be redrawn, or at least perceived differently based on these kinds of interactions. Even provocative social media posts. What kind of real policy consequences can flow from just one high-profile statement like that?
Exactly. The potential implications are quite profound. That kind of rhetoric, especially coming from someone like Trump with his history and continued political presence, it can absolutely feed into an atmosphere of mistrust, of heightened tensions between nations. It can be seen as validating existing rivalries. And for the countries named Russia, North Korea, China, maybe it even pushes them closer together, in a perceived common front against the U.S.
The self-fulfilling prophecy, almost.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
It definitely shapes how other countries view these relationships. Are they genuinely conspiring? Or are they just pragmatic alignments in a really complex world? The language used really helps solidify that us versus them narrative, which can then influence everything from trade talks to military posture. It's a subtle lever, but a powerful one in international relations.
And that brings us to the role of rhetoric itself. Trump's comments put out on a platform like Truth Social, they immediately became a huge part of the global conversation about this parade. It really highlights how individual political figures, even when they're technically out of office, can still significantly shape the narrative around major world events. What does that tell us about the speed and the reach of political commentary today?
It just underscores the incredible speed, really, at which political commentary can now spread. It can influence and frame public perception almost instantly, right across borders. Social media has, in many ways, democratized the spread of political messages, but it's also massively accelerated it.
For sure.
A former head of state, someone with a huge built-in following, can just bypass traditional media gatekeepers and inject their narrative directly into the global bloodstream, so to speak. And this means the immediate reaction to an event can sometimes overshadow the event itself. It can become the main thing people talk about, shaping how millions understand what happened. It's really a testament to the power of the individual voice in our digital age, for better or worse in defining how international events are perceived.
So what this whole episode ultimately helps us see is how one single event, a carefully planned military parade, can be read in such drastically different ways. How it can trigger really strong political reactions and how it reflects these deep, ongoing tensions and power struggles between nations. It's not just another news item, it's like a living snapshot of this constantly shifting geopolitical landscape. And understanding these different layers hopefully helps you, the listener, become a more informed observer, better able to decode the complex signals nations are constantly sending each other. Well, we've definitely covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've looked at China's impressive military parade, explored its important historical and diplomatic meanings, and then unpacked that powerful, provocative response from Donald Trump, especially those warmest regards he sent to Putin and Kim Jong-un amid those very serious accusations of conspiracy against the U.S.
Indeed. And this whole exploration really reveals how national celebrations can suddenly become these very visible stages for geopolitical signaling. And also how just one piece of political commentary can potentially reshape how alliances and rivalries are perceived, almost overnight. The real question it leaves us with, I think, is this. In today's increasingly complex world, how do these grand displays of power and the fiery political reactions they provoke actually change the game? Do they fundamentally alter alignments between nations? Or do they mainly just change how we perceive those relationships? What do you think this grand display and the sharp critique it drew signals for the future of international relations? It's like a global chess match. In every move, every single word seems to matter more than ever.